The Lakers tried to extend their winning streak to 5 in a row on the road to begin the season. It's the first of 2 in a row in Houston. Tip-off between the Lakers and Rockets is coming up at 4 right here on Spectrum Sportsnet. As we say hello and welcome to Access Sportsnet Lakers, brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. I'm Allie Clifton, joined by the Hall of Famer, Big Game, James Worthy, 5-time champ with the Lakers, current Sparks GM and head coach, Derek Fisher, doing it all.
What's up, Allie?
Geeter will join us at halftime. We've got Mike Bresnahan, we got Mike Trudell, and we also have some updates regarding the Lakers. So let's dive right in with the news of the day. Anthony Davis, who missed Friday's game against the Bulls with a right adductor strain, will play today. Davis has missed 2 games this season, and after missing the last 4 games with a left ankle sprain, KCP returns and will start. KCP is shooting 53% from 3, so good to have him back on the floor, especially against the Houston Rockets. Big game whenever you go on the road, especially. Well, always, you want to have all your tools in your toolbox, but good to see it only took 1 game for AD and to finally get KCP back.
KCP's been out the longest. It's definitely good to see him back. You know, the Lakers are going to need his defensive effort. Plus, he can hit the 3, do a lot of things. AD, I'm glad he decided to take a game when he needed to. And so when you're going on the road, absolutely. You want to have full strength. He played exceptionally well in the last game without him. But to have him back is, it's always a good thing.
And I mean, this league is about matchups. And so the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more you can take advantage of matchups, create matchup problems for the opponent. Anytime Anthony Davis is on the court, he creates matchup problems. And then KCP, when you're playing against Houston Rockets, James Harden, Eric Gordon, a team that relies on dribble penetration, isolation, pick and rolls, having another perimeter defender is also a very positive thing.
You know, and it wasn't too long ago that the Lakers saw the Houston Rockets, but they look much different. We're going to dive into that later, but it'll be interesting just to see, because you also talked about those matchups that Anthony Davis in particular creates. Steven Silas was talking about just how he was waiting to hear about the news from Anthony Davis because he could go a bunch of different routes. But with that said, I think KCP, the biggest news, as you mentioned. And for that, let's get you live down to Lakers reporter Mike Trudell, who joins us from just down the hall. Mike, the Lakers are a perfect 4-0 on the road so far. It's good news.
They just love playing on the road, Allie. Same thing last year, right, when they won those 17 straight games in Western Conference arenas. Here's another shot tonight in Houston, and you mentioned the most important points, AD and KCP back. Now, one thing I was curious about with Frank Vogel, so he always has different ball handlers. In this case, it's LeBron and Dennis Schroeder. Well, how does he approach that in contrast to Houston, where you now have John Wall into the mix joining James Harden? That's what Frank talked about moments ago as we started the pregame session.
A lot of that stuff gets worked out on the floor, but you show situations where what you don't want is you don't want 2 guys holding back for outlets. That's the most important thing. So we've gotten that balance pretty well with Dennis and Bron in terms of Bron handling most of the time, Dennis running the floor, but his ability to defer and pass off to Dennis, but also situations where if Dennis is the natural outlet on that side of the floor, he gets it and he pushes, you know what I mean? So, some teams in the NBA, anybody on the team can push it. That's how Golden State played during their championship runs. Anybody could bring it up. And, there's plenty of room for that balance with what Houston is doing and what we're doing.
Frank, going back to the playoff series against Houston, you guys really outdid them in transition. It was a big gap in fast break points, and they're down a bit for you so far. I know a lot of different circumstances, but have you seen anything about running and getting out and pushing and finishing this year in these first 10 games that you think is notable, or is it just a small sample size?
I think we've had some good fast breaking games. I think not having KCP the last four games has been a factor. Obviously he's one of our best runners and fastest guys that gets down the floor and stretches the defense out. I think that's a part of it, but I'm happy with how we're running, and we always want to continue to push and develop those habits of running the floor. Man with the basketball, pushing, the wings getting out and flying, and bigs trying to keep them down for as well.
Hey Frank, what does a successful night of guarding James Harden entail? What qualifies as success against him?
Whether you win or lose. I think that's the biggest thing. You know, I mean, you can have nights where he goes for 40 plus points, you know, but if other guys aren't going and you get the W, that's a successful night. You know, sometimes, you know, if you try to take the ball out of his hands and, you know, other guys that go on the 3-point line and you lose the game, that's not a successful night. So, you know, you want to be able to do as good a job on him as you can, not worry about, you know, his individual numbers, but worry about the team's offensive output, you know, and efficiency that they're executing with, and how much we're holding their team back. You know, that's the biggest thing for us.
All right, there's Frank Vogel. Allie, we'll talk to you later in the show.
Sounds good, Mike. Appreciate that. Keep it simple. Whether you win or lose relies on how you take care of James Harden. The Lakers and Rockets meet for the first of 2 in a row. Game 1 is coming up here at 4 o'clock. Fish, don't tell me that big guys can't dribble. Marc Gasol showing off handle. Player has returned an inconclusive test, and team does not have required 8 players to proceed with game tonight due to contact tracing. Doesn't stop there. It's also impacted Dallas. Tim McMahon of ESPN tweeting this. The Mavs practice facility has been shut down after the team's second positive test in 3 days. Sources said Maxi Kleber started self-isolation this morning. Jalen Brunson, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Josh Richardson still quarantining in Denver. Contact tracing being done now. Here's Lakers head coach Frank Vogel on the NBA's COVID-19 situation.
So much of this pandemic is case by case and situation by situation. And, you know, I think you'd have to measure, you know, those circumstances when they add up. It's difficult to just say, you know, what would cause me to feel like it's too much without seeing all those circumstances. You know, I just know there's going to be guys that test positive, get missed games. The guys are going to be missing games with quarantines, and there will be a few games lost. But hopefully, all of those things are minimal enough that we can continue on with our season safely. And, you know, it just drives the point home, what's happened the last few days, just drives the point home how important it is for all of us to follow the protocols to a T. You know, because if you're really doing that, it really minimizes the risk of the spread of the virus. And, you know, that's what we continue to emphasize with our guys.
Yep, you can't emphasize it enough, guys. This is now the second game of the NBA season. The first one was on day 2 of the NBA with the Rockets and the Thunder. Fish, I want to start with you because you're a coach, now a GM of the Sparks. What is it you're learning from the NBA as they're trying to navigate this new normal? Because the reality is they're trying to play an entire NBA season, or 72 games, if you will, not inside of a bubble.
Yeah, I mean, this was hard to do and experience inside of a bubble. From our experience with the Sparks, you know, we had a couple of inconclusive test situations, players having to miss a game. One of our assistant coaches on a playoff game received an inconclusive, and right before the game tipped off, she was able to get confirmed that she was negative and walk into the arena in the first quarter. So the one thing that I learned as a coach and will take into the job as a general manager is COVID defines what your plans are. There really are no plans at this point. You can scenario plan, but the expectations, assuming that things are going to be a certain way, you really have to throw that out the window, take it one day at a time, like Frank Vogel said, one situation at a time, and really try and remind your players and your staff that you can't be the one that lets go of the rope. You have a responsibility to the organization, to the team, and everyone to do the right thing when it comes to COVID protocols.
We often say just be professional. But this goes even beyond that because, as you just mentioned, as we've all learned, COVID doesn't care what we have to do, what we want to do. It's going to do what it does. And big game, the other factor of this, Fish and I were just talking moments ago about it, there's the next level, the next layer to all of this of trying to keep the season going, but then also balancing, you know, you just saw it with Philly yesterday. You know, they're playing with a limited number of players, I think 6 or 7 guys, and they fall in their game, but the NBA wants it to continue because of balance. You know, they don't want to have to make up all these games in the second half of the season. So there's a lot that they're balancing right now.
Yeah, once the NBA and all these other sports entities decide that they want to play and try to have a season, then they have to be aware that it's not under their control. Okay, COVID, there are no exemptions. for COVID, okay? So once you decide to play, you have to have your coaches and GMs and everybody know that there are going to be situations where you might not have players. You're going to have to be not even prepared for that, but be willing to coach through that and play through that. That is what they've chosen to do. And, yeah, the players have to be careful, but it's so many things out of your control. Your family, where do they go? It's just difficult. So my hat's off to, all the leagues that are pushing through. But I think as fans and sometimes as players, unless they're going to postpone games and stuff like that, which in some sports they have, this is what we have. And I think people are enjoying what they're seeing. It's unfortunate when you miss a player, a star player. It's unfortunate. But this is it. This is COVID, and this is what COVID is allowing us to do.
I go back to the very first day when Luka spoke to the media for media day, if you will, and he made the point that the team that takes it the most serious will probably have the chance to be standing, or one of the teams standing when it's all said and done. And many people kind of laughed and said, no, that's not the case. But you see how it can really take a toll if you don't do things the right way.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Different level of sacrifice and commitment that this requires. And to James's point, there are a lot of things that you can't control yourself, but you can control your decision making.